6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. As the Japanese government approved high school textbooks that contain even stronger claims over South Korea's Dokdo islets, Seoul demand Tokyo immediately rectify the distorted facts. Despite sanctions and warnings, North Korea fires 2 ballistic missiles into the East Sea. Amid strong international condemnation, South Korea vows to push for stronger sanctions, while the U.S. calls the provocation a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. With ever-increasing threats from the north, President Park Geun-hye emphasized the importance of building a strong domestic security, asking national police officers to be vigilant as agents to counter terrorism. The Japanese government announced on Friday its review of high school textbooks for next year, and unfortunately, history has been distorted yet again, with more false sovereignty claims, this time even stronger than before, on South Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island. Seoul immediately demanded rectification of the revisions. Kwon So-hwa starts us off.
South Korea has sternly protested Japan's renewed and expansive claims that South Korea's easternmost island of Dokdo is Japanese territory. Seoul's foreign ministry summoned a Japanese minister from Tokyo's embassy in Seoul Friday to demand immediate repeal of its approval of textbook revisions. A panel reviewed public high school textbooks to be issued beginning April 2017. Out of 35 social studies textbooks, 27 refer to Dokdo as Takeshima, the Japanese name for Dokdo, and claim Korea is illegally occupying the island. That's around 77% and a sharp rise from the 54% of textbooks in 2013. Upon the announcement, Seoul's foreign ministry denounced Tokyo's distorted historical view of the island, which, quote, historically, geographically, and by international law is clearly South Korean territory.
The Japanese government must realize that teaching history accurately is its obligation to not only Japan's future generations, but also to neighboring countries that suffered from Japan's history of invasion.
Similar words were echoed by Seoul's Education Ministry Friday, which cited the Japanese government's acknowledgement in 1877 that Dokdo does not belong to Japan. Seoul and Tokyo's recent landmark agreement on responsibility, apology, and compensation of its wartime sexual slavery has not been included in the textbooks yet, as the revision process came prior to the deal, but is expected to be added after a review next year. However, verbiage in the textbooks this time seems to dismiss evidence of the Japanese military sexual enslavement of Korean women, raising concerns that further revisions will contain similar distortions of history. The government is urging Tokyo to squarely face history and show sincerity in its actions to open up a new chapter in South Korea-Japan relations. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, North Korea fired 2 mid-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea this morning. It's only been days since the U.S. warned of tougher sanctions on the regime for continued nuclear and missile tests. Kim Hyun-bin gives us the latest.
North Korea launched 2 ballistic missiles on Friday morning from Seokcheon in the country's southwest. Military officials say the missile, presumed to be a medium-range NODONG missile, flew 800 kilometers before falling into the East Sea. The other missile was fired from the same location, but disappeared from radar at an altitude of 17 kilometers. A South Korean military official says it most likely malfunctioned and blew up in midair.
We believe North Korea is rushing to develop a nuclear-tipped ballistic missile by the order of Kim Jong-un.
South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the missiles seemed to have been fired from a transporter erector launcher, or TEL. North Korea last test-fired a NODONG missile in March 2014. It has a range of up to 1,300 kilometers, putting Seoul and Tokyo within striking distance. More concerning is that the missile warheads can be loaded with biochemical substances.
The ministry says it's keeping a close eye on North Korea's nuclear and missile development, and that it will maintain the highest readiness to instantly counter any threats from the regime.
Military officials say that the recent launch seems to be in protest of the South Korea-U.S. annual joint military drills, known as Key Resolve and Full Eagle. Friday is the final day of Key Resolve, a computer program war game exercise that aims to enhance interoperability between the two allies. Full Eagle consists of numerous field training exercises and will run through the end of April. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
North Korea's latest provocation triggered quick and strong condemnation from South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, on top of UN sanctions and global efforts to halt the regime's nuclear ambitions. And Friday's missile launches are raising concerns that the latest UN resolution imposing the strongest punitive measures on Pyongyang to date may actually not be harsh enough to stop the North from further provocations. Connie Kim has this report.
The international community condemned North Korea's latest provocation, with one ballistic missile flying some 800 kilometers before falling into the sea off its east coast on Friday morning. South Korea's defense ministry called the launch a threat to peace in the international community.
Our military takes the development of North Korea's nuclear and missile programs seriously. And Pyongyang's missile launch is a frontal attack against the UN Security Council resolution and a significant threat to peace and stability in the international society.
Seoul said it'll push for follow-up measures on a UN Security Council level, pressuring the regime that it cannot survive if it does not give up its nuclear ambitions. The U.S. Pentagon called the launch a clear violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions and called on North Korea to refrain from actions that further raise tensions in the region. Washington's State Department added the U.S. remains steadfast in its commitment to the defense of its allies, including South Korea and Japan. Tokyo quickly launched a protest with North Korea through its embassy in Beijing, as one of the North Korean mid-range missiles launched on Friday hit waters within the Japanese Air Defense Identification Zone. Speaking in Parliament, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe condemned Pyongyang's actions and warned of any further provocations.
While demanding strongly that North Korea show restraint, we are making doubly sure that we can respond to any situation with our means, including strengthening our surveillance systems.
North Korea's mid-range ballistic missile launches came following Pyongyang's claim that it has succeeded in miniaturizing a nuclear warhead to fit on ballistic missiles and claimed to have acquired missile re-entry technology. Seoul is keeping a close eye on the regime's moves as it sees a fifth nuclear test to be a possibility. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Against the backdrop of continued threats coming from the North, President Park Geun-hye on Friday called on law enforcement officers to put priority on enhancing domestic public safety and stressed that law and order is a prerequisite for economic revitalization. Our Song Ji-sun tells us more.
There cannot be perfection in security readiness. But to protect ourselves from foreign threats, we must reinforce domestic safety first. That was President Park Geun-hye's message at a commissioning ceremony for police cadets.
최근 북한은 잇따른 무력 도발과 위협으로 한반도의 평화와 안정을 크게 위협하고 있습니다. 이에 대비한 확고한 안보 태세를 갖추기 위해서는 우리 내부의 치안부터 안정이 되어야 합니다.
Park said every police officer must act as an agent for anti-terrorism. With North Korea's rising threats both in cyberspace and in the real world, which could cause social chaos if such terror schemes are executed. Saying the government's major reform and innovation drives can only succeed with strict law enforcement, she called on officers to help establish a clean and transparent society.
이 모든 개혁과 혁신이 성공하기 위해서는 법 질서부터 확립되어야 합니다. 부정부패와 비리를 일소하고 법이 엄정하게 공정하게 지켜질 때 불필요한 사회적 비용이 감소하면서 경제 활성화에 가속도가 붙을 수 있습니다.
Acknowledging that safety blind spots such as child abuse and domestic violence remain, Park also called on the police to protect the weak, women, children, elderly, and the disabled to ensure the nation is protecting its people. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Counting down to Korea's general elections, now just 26 days away, Korea's political landscape continues to change. Lawmakers let their frustrations over the results of their party's nomination process be known by choosing to defect. Shin Se-min has the updates.
The political turmoil continues at the parliament as major political parties continue to finalize candidate nomination for the upcoming general election on April 13th. Following delays in the candidate nomination process, several ruling Saenuri Party lawmakers have decided to leave the camp and announced that they will run as independent candidates. Among the defectors were high-profile politicians like Cho Hae-jin, perhaps a victim of his association with Yoo Seung-min, the former floor leader of the ruling party and part of the group at odds with the pro-President Park Geun-hye faction. Yoo Seung-min and President Park clashed after the three-term lawmaker criticized the Park administration's promise to expand social welfare without raising taxes. Amid the ongoing rift between Park loyalists and the non-Park faction of lawmakers, the ruling party has delayed its announcement of remaining incumbent lawmakers' nominations, including Yoo. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea continued its nomination process, announcing an additional 9 candidates for inclusion on the ballots. The minor People's Party also rolled out its 5th round of nominations, including Chung Ho-jun, who joined the People's Party after failing to receive nomination from the Minju Party of Korea Tuesday. Chung's move to the People's Party allowed the minor bloc to form a parliamentary negotiations group by securing the required 20 incumbent lawmakers from the 300-strong National Assembly. With incumbent lawmakers changing political parties just less than a week before the 2-day candidate registration session begins, prospects for the upcoming general election still remains unclear for the time being. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The pace of decline for Korea's producer prices slowed in February, staying at the same level of the previous month. The Bank of Korea says the rise in prices of agricultural products led the slowdown. Prices of farm produce rose 3.7% last month from January. However, producer prices were down 3.4% last month from a year earlier. Producer prices have been sliding since July last year on the back of plunging global crude oil prices. Meanwhile, oil prices hit their highest point this year on Thursday after major producers agreed to meet next month to discuss an output freeze. The price of West Texas Intermediate settled at $40.20 a barrel, up 4.5%. Brent crude futures finished up $1.21 at $41.54. Oil prices surged after key producers from within and outside OPEC decided to meet on April 17th in Qatar to discuss the first global supply deal in 15 years. The rise also comes amid rising crude exports and gasoline demands in the U.S., as well as a weaker dollar after the Federal Reserve's decision to freeze its benchmark rate on Wednesday. Korea's benchmark Kospi gained 3.92 points, or 0.2%, to climb past 1,991 on the back of the oil price recovery. The dwarf planet Pluto is more strange and fascinating than we ever imagined, apparently. Analysis of data collected from NASA's space probe New Horizons reveals just how much more there is to explore of our solar system. KWON Jang-ho shares with us NASA's latest findings.
The big surprise is that Pluto turned out so surprising. That's what one of NASA's top researchers said about the object once known as the 9th planet. NASA released 5 new groundbreaking papers on the dwarf planet in Science magazine on Thursday, outlining the discoveries they made from the data sent by its space probe New Horizons. When they sent the probe on its 3 billion-mile mission 9.5 years ago, NASA had no idea about the variety of terrain and geological activity on Pluto's surface. They discovered everything from flat plains to mountain ranges and underground oceans to ice volcanoes. There was even the discovery of a hazy blue atmosphere, faintly reminiscent of Earth. Not only Pluto, but fascinating discoveries were made about Pluto's moons as well. Charon, the largest moon, was seen to have a complex and intriguing terrain. And Pluto's 4 smaller moons were found to have unprecedented orbits and rotation, which NASA has yet to explain properly. But sadly, this could be the last time pictures like these of Pluto are seen for a very long time. Although data transmission continues, New Horizon has now left the dwarf planet behind and is on its way to the Kuiper Belt, with the chances of another close-up look at Pluto unlikely in the foreseeable future. KWON Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Here's the latest update on the race for the White House. U.S. President Barack Obama has privately told a group of Democratic donors that the party must back Hillary Clinton as the next Democratic candidate for the White House. The New York Times reported on Thursday that Obama, who had stayed neutral until now, also signaled that Clinton's rival Senator Bernie Sanders was nearing the end of his campaign. He noted that some Democrats did not view Clinton as authentic and played down the importance of authenticity. The president made the remarks at a fundraising event in Texas for the Democratic National Committee, and the comments were later confirmed by a White House official. Those who attended the event said Obama's tone was urgent as Donald Trump appears set to be the Republican nominee. Staying in the U.S., K-pop musicians are grabbing the spotlight at one of the largest music festivals in the world. Kim Ji-yeon takes us to Austin, Texas, where this year's South by Southwest is being held.
Who wouldn't want to dazzle a huge crowd with their musical talents? Some young Korean bands have seen their dreams come true at the 30th annual South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, one of the top 3 biggest music festivals in the world. K-pop fans don't mind waiting to see what they have to offer.
In high school, some girls showed it to me and I was like, I like this. I listen to other countries, their music.
The dancing. I really like the dancing a lot because me and my friends can get together and we can dance it as well and learn it.
A total of 7 teams handpicked by the music director of South by Southwest are performing this year. They come from various music backgrounds, including rock, heavy metal, dance, and R&B.
Favorite song of the night was My Mama.
To work with them.
Yes, as soon as possible. They're amazing, so I definitely want to work on their next project.
Apart from Mamamoo and Zion T, the other Korean musicians aren't household names, even in Korea. For these rising stars, it's a great chance to stand out as producers, and music industry bigwigs are among the audience on the lookout for the next great hit.
It was such a great opportunity to share our music. I hope we can get some more publicity by showing our performances.
The Korea Creative Contents Agency hopes to bring more K-pop musicians to South by Southwest next year to promote Korea's alternative music culture to the world. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of our newscast. As always, thank you for watching.